Your brain gets flooded with dopamine every single time you watch porn. Dopamine is evolutionarily supposed to be the thing that you get when you've accomplished something. The only reason we've ever accomplished anything as a race is because of dopamine. It is so addicting that it gets you to do really hard, terrible, difficult things in order to draw yourself forward in life and create a sense of accomplishment. Now that you can get it with the push of a button, why accomplish anything? Why push forward at all? Why do anything scary or difficult when all you have to do is type in boobies on the internet and suddenly you can feel like you've conquered the world? What up, everybody? Welcome back to Operation Moksha. As always, I am your host, Chris Orozco, and today we're going to be talking about porn, which is a very popular topic to talk about, and it's a very important topic to talk about. This impacts so many people's lives in so many ways that we absolutely fucking have to address this, especially because there's such a wide spectrum of opinions on it that it can be very difficult to figure out how you actually think about it as a person. So what I want to do is provide a balanced, nuanced, integrative look at what porn is and ultimately how you could potentially use it in your life, but also the damages and all the dangers that come along with it. Because to me, porn is just one of these things that exists, just like anything else. Once you really start to embrace the integrative mindset and an integrative lifestyle, you learn to no longer see things as good or bad. You learn to see them as just things that exist. And what makes them good or bad is your relationship to them or the relationship of the world around you to them. And porn is exactly the same way. So I actually want to start off with the things that I like about porn, the things that I actually think are good about it, so that you can get that out of the way first, and then we'll go into all the bad stuff, because quite honestly, there's a lot more of it. So the things that I do like about porn, because I have friends that create porn, I have friends on OnlyFans, I have friends that run OnlyFans agencies, and it has allowed my friends to make a lot of money and to have a free life where they can take control of their lives and do whatever the fuck they feel like and be the masters of their realities, so they don't have to work some job that they don't like or work in the porn industry for a bunch of shady ass motherfuckers who want to take advantage of them. Like, this whole OnlyFans thing's as damaging as it is to both the creators and the people that consume it. There are some good points in that it has allowed some of my friends to get themselves out of bad situations, to take control of their lives, to build wealth, put themselves through college, and do a whole bunch of really cool things that they can eventually decide what to do with later. On top of that, on a personal note, porn is something that I have used in my own personal life to overcome shame and fear and all those sorts of things, because I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so I had a whole bunch of shame around sexuality. So what I would do is I would look at porn as an opportunity to bring up that fear and shame for me to work through. Because if you look at these things that you're not supposed to look at, and if you look at all these things that you're not supposed to do, that only bad people do, and you're presented with it, it brings up all the feelings as if you're actually there. And so what you can do is you can use that as an opportunity to bring up those emotions, figure out why you feel so bad about them, process them, and ultimately integrate them. You can also use it as a visualization tool. You can figure out what kind of desires you're interested in, and then you can watch other people go through it and be like, how do I feel about that? Is that actually interesting to me? Is that something I think I might want to try out with a willing partner? If not, you might find out that you want this thing or you're drawn to it for negative reasons or whatever, and then you can process it and integrate it. But if you look at the thing and you genuinely like it, you can be like, okay, maybe that is something that I want to try. Let me see if I can find a partner that wants to try it with me. Now, if you can just go find a willing partner that's willing to experiment with you, that's obviously going to be way better, but not everybody has that option just like at the ready. If you're wanting to see how you feel about things, if you're wanting to, explore your own internal world and use it as a visualization tool, then it's really not all that bad if you use it that way. Porn is actually really fun to watch with someone that you're actually having sex with. It can be really kind of sexy and fun if you have a partner that you're actually hooking up with. You all watch porn together, you can talk about it, you can get ideas, you can experiment. It can just be a really fun thing. Now, that's pretty much the only good things about porn. Those are pretty much the only things I like about it. Everything else is bad, and I'm gonna start talking about those things now. But I wanted to present the good things first so that you don't see me as some ridiculous pearl clutcher who's just like, oh my God, this is a terrible, awful thing and you can't do that. And anybody who does is bad. I'm not one of those people. I have an integrative mindset. I think that there's good to pretty much anything and everybody in the world, because when you practice shadow integration, you have to find the good in every single part of yourself, no matter how toxic or dangerous it is. So as a result of practicing that mentality for long enough, you learn to find the good in everything around you as well. And porn is just one of those things. It does have good points. It does have things you can leverage for the betterment of yourself and your life and all those sorts of things. But if we're really honest, it does much more harm than good. First reason it does much more harm than good is the absolute flood of dopamine that comes in when you start watching porn, especially if you're having personal time while you watch it. Because all of these things create an intense amount of dopamine. Because basically what you're doing is you're taking this evolutionary thing that your brain has come up with to try and get you to move forward. Dopamine is the chemical that lets you know that you're accomplishing things, that you're growing, that you're moving forward, and you're hitting the mark that you're aiming for. That's what dopamine is for. It doesn't seem to me like we would have accomplished anything as a species if it weren't for dopamine. Growth is really, really hard. Accomplishing things is really, really hard. Building society and civilization is really, really hard. If it wasn't for dopamine hardwired in us to make us feel better than anything else in the universe, when we move forward and accomplish things, I don't think we'd really push that hard. Because dopamine is quite literally the most addictive substance on the face of the planet. There have been so many experiments where, like, cocaine has been given to animals like monkeys and mice and all these kinds of things, and they will pick it because it releases dopamine. They will pick it over food, they will pick it over water, they will pick it over sex, they will pick it over life itself, and they will just keep eating the little cocaine water until they fucking die. We've seen this happen with so many animals, and if you look around at like cocaine and heroin addiction, you will see the exact same behavior in humans as well. Because those two drugs release a shitload of dopamine. And what we know about people that get addicted to those things is those addictions are very, very, very difficult to break. It takes a very long time, and they're extremely addictive because dopamine is the thing that evolutionarily makes us feel like we're doing good. So if you don't already think you're doing good, and you have a way to just type in some boobies or butts or whatever it is you want to look on the internet, and all of a sudden you have a flood of the chemical that tells you that you are the fucking man, and that you are a conqueror, and that you are the best thing that ever existed, well then you're probably going to pick that over real people. You're going to pick that over all the good things in your life, just like a monkey, just like a mouse, just like anybody else with any kind of dopamine addiction. So it is extremely, extremely dangerous to be kind of messing with your brain this way, especially when you consider the fact that what is happening in a very real way is you have a whole generation of men who are at least tempted. Way too many than I'd like to admit or like to acknowledge are actually taking this bait, but so many men in our culture right now, all around the world actually, are actually choosing porn and OnlyFans and things like that over real relationships. Because one of the other big dangers to this type of thing is the fact that it not only gives you an enormous rush of dopamine, but it also gives you this fake, illusory, produced, and just created version of intimacy and connection. Especially with OnlyFans when you consider the fact that you can sit there and talk to the model now. Like, porn was dangerous enough when all you had to do was just watch the models, and like you could have all your fantasies on demand, and suddenly you can just like have your dream girl doing whatever the fuck you feel like, and then you just turn it off and she's gone. There's no need to romance, there's no need to face rejection or humiliation, there's no need to perform, there's no need to like build and maintain a relationship. All you do is type in like butts and boobies, and suddenly everything you've ever wanted is right at your fucking fingertips, and it's gone the moment that you want it. It is a completely ridiculous, absurd, and hilarious mirrored image of reality, because that is just not how reality is at all. If you want to have fulfilling sexual relationships, you have to put yourself in a position to be rejected. You have to put yourself in a position to potentially get humiliated. You have to put yourself in a position to see where you're actually at with your sexuality and with your confidence and your ability to connect with intimately and ultimately please and be attractive to the partners that you actually want to have sex with. And these are the characteristics that will turn you into a man. And if you choose to reject this challenge, this archetypal evolutionary challenge, because let's be real, getting rejected by a woman as a man is literally, in the evolutionary limbic part of the brain, says your genes are not worthy to be carried on. Or at least, in this girl's opinion, your genes are not worthy to carry on. That is the biggest and deepest pain on an evolutionary level that you can feel as a man. And at the same time, it is one of the biggest fears that is important for you to be able to overcome so that you can become a man. Because the type of person that shies away from that is going to sit themselves in their room, just watch porn. They're going to get the safe version of it that doesn't make them actually have to go face rejection or humiliation or performance anxiety or anything like that. And they're going to get the safe version of it. And as a result of doing that, they're going to get such a flood of dopamine that they didn't earn on demand. And so here's the worst part about it. Those avoidant behaviors are going to get hardwired because your brain hardwires itself around dopamine and its production. So when you're running away from real relationships, and this is where a lot of marriages get fucked up too, because relationships are difficult. You have to have a consistent series of hard conversations, and you have to tell the truth, you have to be able to listen to really difficult things, and know how to navigate these situations in order to keep a marriage fulfilling and intimate and exciting and keep the sex good. There's so much work that has to go into it, and so much of it is difficult and challenging and doesn't feel good and takes a long time to work out. But when you can get a fake illusory version of that, eventually you're gonna wanna turn away from your relationships and turn away from the idea of even creating them and just get this safe thing that your brain ends up getting hardwired for. So honestly, the dopamine to me isn't even the worst part. It's the relational stuff that to me is the worst part. It's just the dopamine that hardwires all that. Because this relational stuff, this is how we become men. When you can become someone who loves himself and sees his value and is willing to allow other people to reject him and not like him and be displeased with whatever he's doing or whatever, but still feel solid and sovereign in yourself and still love yourself and see yourself as a good person and still go out and create the things that you want to create, that is not only how you ultimately attract the mate that is perfect for you and have the most fulfilling, satisfying sex life of your entire goddamn life, but it's also how you conquer these fears and become a strong man capable of allowing rejection in and not taking it personal. Because the thing is, not everybody's for you. You don't want to fuck everybody. There's tons of people you don't want to fuck. So why are you worried about the fact that some people don't want to fuck you? It's not that big of a deal. But it's only when you're insecure and you're afraid of those things and what they potentially mean about you that you shy away from them. And porn gives you a nice, safe, warm, gross little blanket to cover yourself in so that you don't have to face that stuff. And I am here to tell you that facing those things is the way to become the version of yourself you have always wanted to become. The more you shy away from failure, the more you shy away from pain, the weaker you get. The further you get away from being a genuine man, and the more you just hide in a place that you know you don't really feel good about. And let's be real. If you are doing this and you feel a sense of shame, you're probably spiraling. Because something that we know about people that get addicted to porn is that the more they watch it, what ends up happening is they start looking at more and more weird shit. They go down these really weird shame spirals, and suddenly they can only get off to the most bizarre things you could possibly imagine. But nobody really talks about why that is. And that is what happens in the relationship of shame. Because what ends up happening is most of the time people will look at that sort of stuff because they're too ashamed to go after what they want. They don't think that they deserve it. They don't think that they're good enough. Maybe they have sexual shame because, let's be real, that's a huge element of our culture, at least here in America. Sexual shame while also hypersexualizing everything. So we have this really bizarre relationship with sex in America where I live, where we sexualize the shit out of everything, but at the same time tell you that sex is bad and you shouldn't do it. So a lot of people have this idea that they're supposed to be hypersexual, but they also feel shame about it in the same time. So it's just really kind of fucked up, and it's not good for your brain, but this is the reality that we live in. So what ends up happening with people is they want to be hypersexual because who doesn't? And then they don't know how to go and get it because they're ashamed of their sexuality, especially for men nowadays, because we have not been given positive images and ideas and messages about going out and seeking our sexual satisfaction and our desires. We've not really been told how to do that in a healthy way. We've only been told how much we've hurt people as a result of doing that. So a lot of guys are scared, a lot of guys are ashamed and don't really feel good about going out and getting those things in an honest, transparent, and true to form way. So instead they get the runner-up. They get I'm gonna watch other people do the shit I wish I could do. And so as a result of doing that, they do this because they feel shame. And then they feel shame afterwards. And so what they're doing is they're having this little shame ritual where they're like, I'm not good enough to get the things that I really want, so I'm going to do this shameful thing. And every single time they do that, they reaffirm the shameful beliefs, the shameful ideas, the shameful identities, and the shameful emotions. So what ends up happening is instead of facing the fears and overcoming the shame, they compound it and they grow it, and they go down the spiral telling themselves more and more that they deserve to feel ashamed. And as they build this identity and this whole ethos of shame, they have to get more and more shameful shit to hit that sweet spot. Because they see themselves as this awful, terrible person. So in order for that identity to hold up, they have to look at things that make them feel like an awful, terrible person. That's the only way it's going to work. Because this has nothing to do with pleasure. This has nothing to do with genuine sensuality or sexuality or expression. This has everything to do with the conflict between libido and shame. You're trying to get your needs met, but you feel shamed about it, so it gets twisted into this gross little thing where you can only pursue the things that make you feel really terrible, and that's the only thing that'll really do it for you. And people just go down this spiral until next thing they know, they're like, what the fuck have I been looking at? What have I become? What's happened to me? And they have this awful moment where they realize what they're looking at and what they've become. And it's a long, hard road back up to the top. So I really just want to encourage you to not fucking do that. And going back on what I said before, if you don't feel a whole lot of shame about porn, then it's not gonna hurt you as bad, because there is actually this interesting story that I read a few years ago where they linked the real harm to marriages and things like that to doing something that you believe is wrong. Like, yes, the porn will flood your brain with dopamine. Yes, it'll make you feel like you've accomplished things that you didn't. Yes, it'll give you a false sense of intimacy. Yes, it gives you this really fucked up view of sex in general where you can just turn it on and there it is and it's gone the moment because that's not how people work. Yes, it does all those things and those are all really bad. But something in and of itself that is dangerous is doing something that you believe to be wrong. If you hold in your mind and in your body that sex is wrong and you go and do it, you're gonna feel like shit about yourself. If you do anything that you think is wrong, you're gonna start feeling like shit about yourself and you're gonna start forming the identity as a bad person who does things that they know to be bad and wrong. And there was this study done, I may be misquoting it a little bit, so take this with a grain of salt, but it had something to do with like a spectrum of Christianity, where the more devoutly Christian the person was, and they looked at porn, the more damaging effects it had on their minds, on their mental health, and their relationships. Because not only are you doing this thing where you can turn away from your partner now and like get your needs met in a way where you don't have to face the negative repercussions of intimacy and long-term relationship building, but also now your shame is building because you're doing something you believe is wrong. And so that makes you want to hide from the people in your life. It makes you want to hide from life itself. And it makes you withdraw more and more because you're starting to see yourself as somebody who does bad things. So the belief that it is wrong in and of itself makes it even more harmful. So if you're gonna use it in any of the ways that I talked about before, at least deal with the shame about it, because if you don't face that shame, you are going to dig yourself one hell of a hole that is gonna be very difficult for you to get out of. So even if you wanna use it as an exploratory thing, to explore desires or bring up fear and shame for you to work through, make sure that you face the shame, because if you don't, your relationship with sex is gonna get really weird. Your relationship with yourself is gonna get really weird. Your self-esteem and your identity, it's all just gonna go in the shitter. So for the love of God, just don't do things that you genuinely believe to be wrong. Face that first before you use it in any of the other contexts. So if you are the type of person that is struggling with porn addiction and you are in that shame spiral and you know what I'm talking about, what I want to encourage you to do is to start facing that pain. Because the shame spiral can only exist as long as the shame goes unfaced and unexamined. When you start looking at the shame and when you start facing that part of yourself and you start to love it and that part of you finally starts to feel like it's good enough and worthy and deserving of love, you're not gonna seek out things that make you feel shame anymore, because you're gonna stop believing that you deserve it. You're gonna start believing that you actually deserve better. And when you actually start to believe that you deserve better and then you're worthy and deserving of all your intimate fantasies or whatever it is coming true, then all of a sudden you can go out there and look for it in real people. And that's when your life really starts to come alive. You have to face rejection. You have to face shame. You have to face performance anxiety. That's how you get the things in real life that you want, so you don't have to settle for an illusion that makes you feel like shit. Because let's be real, when you get addicted to porn and you start looking at it a lot, you feel weak, you feel small, you feel terrible, you feel like just a fucking loser. Let's be real. But when you break away from that and you start to face these things in real life, and even if you get rejected, you'll feel good about the fact that you at least tried. And even if like you can't perform or whatever, you're like, you know what, that's a real person. Like, who gives a fuck? And the more you face the shame and the more you love yourself, no matter what happens, you will come alive. Your sexuality will become integrated and you'll be able to express it with real people in ways that really make you feel good, because you'll be able to face the pain of rejection. So you can talk to the people you're really attracted to. You can express your desires, even if the other person doesn't really like them. And you can say, fine, that's great. I'll find someone else who does, because you believe that you're worthy and deserving of it. And so much of this comes down to what you believe you're worthy and deserving of. This is an incredible way to hide from your pain, to hide from your shame, and to hide from what you think you deserve. But if you can really face these things on a consistent level, you will become a completely different person. You will become somebody who comes alive knowing that they deserve all the best things in the world and pursues them without getting in the way and actually achieving all of your desires and dreams. So porn, if used in the wrong way, can rob you of all the most beautiful things about life and turn you into someone you really don't want to be. But even if you're in the midst of addiction, you can start feeling those feelings, you can start facing them, you can start integrating them, and you can start becoming a completely different person. So since this is actually a very big and complex topic that touches a lot of different people, I went to my Instagram page and I made a poll for some questions about this topic, and I'm gonna start answering those questions now. So the first one is, how do I quit permanently? And this is a layered answer, right? Because The first answer is just stop looking at it. Like, it's literally that simple. Like, I know there's dopamine addiction and all that sort of stuff, but the actual answer is stop looking at it. Don't complicate it too much. I'm going to go into all the shadow integration, complicated psychological stuff in a second, but never forget that the actual solution is to just stop looking at it and to find something else to do. That's literally it. But now, how to get yourself in a frame where you can actually do that? Because one of the other questions in here is, how do I get myself to stop even though I know I don't want to? I know this is a pattern. I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know this is bad for me, but I keep doing it anyway. What do I do then? And that's when it gets a little bit more complicated. Now, remember, the answer is still to just fucking stop if you need to stop. However, if you can't, the question is why? What needs are you getting met from this thing that you're not getting met anywhere else in your life? Is it the feeling of fake intimacy? Is it the feeling of like pretending like there's this gorgeous woman or whoever doing this thing that you really want? Is it allowing you to hide from shame? Is it allowing you to hide from the fear of rejection? What specifically are you getting out of this? And what specifically do you get to avoid as a result of using it? If you really get honest with yourself and really start telling yourself like, okay, I look at porn because actually talking to real people scares me too much, and I don't want to feel the rejection anymore, and honestly, I think if I even got into bed with someone, like I wouldn't be all that good. Be honest with yourself. And then even if that's the case, figure out why. What is it about rejection that scares you so much? Like if you have performance anxiety, what do you fear is going to happen, and what inside you might make that happen? I mean, the two biggest forms of sexual dysfunction that men deal with are premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. And I've overcome both using shadow integration. And they both usually have to deal with shame. Premature ejaculation is like, oh, I have this negative relationship with pleasure. As soon as pleasure shows up, I think it's bad, so I got to get rid of it, and go, and you're done. And so that's where that really comes from. Now, the opposite thing is like erectile dysfunction, where usually it's also shame, right? You don't feel good about sex. You don't think you're allowed to have it. You don't think it's good, so you shut it down, and therefore the sexual energy never allows itself to express it through you, and you get, So if you face your shame and integrate it and actually allow your fantasies and your sexual energy to flow through you, then you will solve whatever problems that you're dealing with and become the version of yourself that you've always wanted to be. So one of the other questions was, is it possible to have a healthy relationship with porn? And I think the answer is yes. Now, that being said, like, don't go fucking bananas with that. Like, if you're doing it every day, maybe fucking don't, right? Because that's just not good for you. That's too much dopamine. It's too easy to hide out. And plus, if you're having intimate time with yourself too frequently, that can really have negative impacts on your relationships as well. Because that's just another thing that can allow you to avoid actually pursuing real people. Because if the pleasure is right there and it's just like, well, I can get it the easy way, then like, don't do it. The only thing I would really want to say is be honest with yourself about whether or not these practices and habits are getting in the way of you actually pursuing that which you truly desire, right? Like if you are actually having close, intimate relationships that you feel good about and you're communicating and you're really honest about who you are and what you want, and the other person is not only consensual about it, but like enthusiastically consensual about it, and you're getting people that really are excited to play the games that you want to play, and then you're using porn as like something to supplement or explore or bring up emotions to work through so you don't have to work through them with your partners, because like, let's be real, not all your partners want to help you work through sexual shame, so maybe you can do some of that on your own time. Like if you are actually pursuing healthy relationships in a way you feel good about and you want to use it as a supplement and as a tool, then like fine, who cares? But you really have to be honest with yourself about whether or not you're hiding or using it as a supplement to an already satisfying life. Now, if you're a creator or somebody who runs an agency, then it's like, if you're a creator, make sure that you create the stuff that you really want to create and that you feel good about. Make sure that you are working with people that you genuinely want to work with and you're feeling good about it, and you don't have to work for some agency that you don't like. And if you are working for an agency, make sure you like them and they respect you and you feel good about how everything is going down. But also, at the same time, like be honest about the impact, because I don't really think the amount of people that can genuinely enjoy it and feel good about it, I don't think that number is as high as we want to think it is. There's a lot of people that want to act like they're okay with it, but actually they're suffering inside and feeling really shitty about it. So if you are a creator or somebody who runs an agency, just take stock of how you feel about yourself at the end of the day and see if this is really something that you want to be doing. And if it is, then fucking great. Enjoy it. You found something really cool. You can express yourself in a way with people that you like, and you can do the things that are fun for you, and you make a shitload of money off it. Awesome. I would also ask you to see how you feel about the impact that your work is having on other people and see if you can really feel good about that or integrate concern for them in some way. Like just acknowledge the fact that porn can be good for some people, but it's bad for almost everybody that consumes it. Like, just be honest about that and see how you feel about it and what can be done about that. If you run an agency, same fucking thing. Because I have friends on both sides of it. So these things, you can have a healthy relationship with them. I don't think nearly as many people do as they want to say. And I don't think a lot of people that are making it at least, are having the real conversations about the impact that it's having on the culture around them. This is really kind of weird, right? Like, the people that make the content are constantly creating or like complaining about the dating pool. And it's like, well, you're the one shitting in it. Like, don't shit where you eat. Like, that's kind of weird. And then like the people that run the agencies are like mad about what guys are turning into. And it's like, you made them that. Like, what the fuck did you expect? So I don't know, just like maybe be aware of the impact you're having on the world around you and see how you feel about it. And if you can like integrate that concern into your worldview somehow, maybe you'll feel a little bit better about things. So like, yes, it is possible to have a positive relationship with it, but it would take a complex integration of a bunch of different factors, internal and external. So just be honest with yourself about whether or not you're there. So the last question that I got from Instagram was this person talking about like feeling empty as a result of overindulgence. And this is the last one that I'm going to talk about. And this goes back to the dopamine thing. Because what ends up happening is your brain isn't designed for modern culture. Your brain isn't designed for modern technology. Your brain isn't designed to get endless amounts of dopamine just from scrolling social media. Your brain isn't designed for all the dopamine that you get from porn and TV and all these different things and getting text messages and getting likes because you posted a picture of like whatever. Like, your brain isn't set up for that. Technology has been exponentially growing every year for the last 10 years. And our psychology and our evolutionary biology has not caught up with that. So what ends up happening is when you get overloaded with dopamine, your brain can't produce anymore. And so everything starts feeling empty because nothing can bring you joy, because literally the only chemical that is capable of giving you joy is all run out. So you have to give yourself a break from porn and social media and sugar and all kinds of things in order to let your receptors build back up so that you can enjoy things again. And I've done this before. I help run a group called Masterful Man with a couple of my friends, and a part of that group, which is for men, is a dopamine detox, where we have it so you don't look at social media. You only use these things, like I run my business on social media, so I have to look at it and I have to write content and shit. But you only do it for things that you really need it for. No TV, no sugar, no caffeine, no porn, no alcohol, no certain whatever. Anything that gives you dopamine from an external source other than achievements and accomplishments, you can't do it. And honestly, it was really fucking difficult. I slept for the first couple days. And then I cried for the couple days after. And then eventually, after I got all that shit out of my system, I started to feel a lot better. And so if you are the type of person where you're experiencing emptiness because you've just been releasing so much dopamine that your brain just literally cannot keep up with it, then maybe join our group. And if you don't want to do that, then just give yourself a break. It's going to suck. Let's not mince words here. It's going to suck because it's literally breaking an addiction to the most addictive substance on the planet. When you stop, you're going to want to do it again. You're going to get cravings. You're going to feel like terrible if you don't do these things. But that feeling is the start of you becoming free. If you can embrace that terrible feeling that shows up when you don't feed your addictions, if you can sit in that for just a little bit longer than you could the day before, you're becoming more free. And so I don't expect you to be perfect with this. I don't expect you to be like, oh, I watched this fucking guy talk about porn, so now I'm never going to do it again, and like I'm done forever. Like, I don't expect that. That's ridiculous. But if you can just begin the process of facing the emotions that you don't want to feel and that porn helps you avoid, if you can start that process and get a little bit better at it every single day, your attachment to at least the negative sides will break. It will diminish every single day. You will get a little bit more free. Your addictions will just lessen a little bit. And then the most important thing that I'm going to end on is to make sure that you form a vision for your life that includes a meaningful goal, so that you can start to get dopamine from the way that your brain was evolutionarily designed to give it to you. You are supposed to figure out who you are, what you want out of life, and go and face the difficulties and the challenges and the obstacles to achieving it. That is the archetypal dragon that you slay in order to get the princess. Like, people didn't just make this shit up for a reason. Like, you're not supposed to be able to just like type in princess and just get a princess. Like, you're not supposed to be able to do that. You're supposed to slay dragons for the princess. That's how that's supposed to go. That's why archetypally in these stories, the princess is the reward for slaying the dragon. It's not necessarily some like sexist bullshit that everybody wants to make it seem. You're actually supposed to go out and face difficulties and challenges and become a man worthy of admiration and worthy of love. And then as a result, you'll actually get the things that you want, and you'll be able to be someone that you're proud of, that other people can respect, genuinely be attracted to, and want relationships with, both sexual and intimate and romantic. So that's all that. Let me know if you have any more questions about this. This is a very big, deep, and complex conversation that I would love to dive into again. Let me know, because I know y'all have a lot of questions about this shit. And I will go into it much deeper with whatever questions you have. I love you. Thank you for being here. I'm Chris Roscoe, and I'll see you next time.